right, so the one I wrote was 2024 elections, tech versus tech, right? So this is gonna happen, right?
Okay.
Like you got Peter Thiel coming in, you got Mark Cuban coming in, you got Jason Gunn for mayor. It's pretty obvious to me that like all of this Silicon Valley like mentality is gonna push its way into
Is
politics.
this part of your like Silicon Valley is the new Hollywood
Yeah.
theory, basically? Like the power.
You
like,
had Ronald
influence-
Reagan back in the day. Like, where is influence driven from? It was Hollywood, it was movies, music, and all that. And I say it was because there's like way more influence done by like a device like Apple's and I got an Android in my hand, you know, so something like that. If I had an Apple in my hand, I could do that. But I mean, like Apple is probably more influential than most musicians, maybe in some ways. And I think that like across the board, like Facebook's making tweaks to the algorithm. We're all thinking different stuff, you know. Like you literally train the way you think, what you want to see, what you want to hear. And so, if people can build these social products with massive influence, I think they also want to then influence other parts of society.
So tech versus tech. You think 2024?
2024 tech versus tech on both sides.
So that's Peter Thiel versus.
I think we'll get a taste of it in the next elections because this one sucks. Like nobody's happy with this election. Like
I think our generation of entrepreneurs, there's going to be some who decide to do VC funds, some who decide to become, serial entrepreneurs. Others will decide to run for office. I've talked to a few who that's what their passion are, and so they're going to have the resources to do it, and they're going to have that's what their mind is like I want to use my money for good, and so they're going to naively just jump into it, and we'll see how that goes. I think to your point about tech becoming the new sort of Hollywood. Yeah, instead of just having music and movies and TV in our living rooms, we have a lot more technology in our lives. We're using lots of apps. We're seeing the cult of the founder kind of get created now.
Right.
We have a new category of celebrity. Shark Tank is the number one.
I mean, look at this,
Okay,
right? So
show
on
for
top
watching
of
with your family.
Snapchat, you have this area. It just shows you kind of all the stories, and then you got will your job go extinct? Kylie ties the knot. Hurricane Matthew. This is all that people know, and they're more influential than movies are too slow now, right?
Right.
Okay, Captain America comes out, and then this other movie comes out. That's too slow.
Right. It's an hour of your time once whenever.
And people
And
don't.
this is every
Hour
day,
a day.
all day, right in your face, right?
And they don't say I watched that on TV. They say I got that on Snapchat.
Correct. And so that's kind of the same.
Who is the most outside of tech? Who is the biggest crossover star? Somebody from tech who is more well known, the most well known outside of the tech sphere. Who do you think that is?
I mean, Zuckerberg just
Jessica
from
Alba, who's the CMO of
No,
the
she's
company.
crossing into tech. I'm saying
we're saying from tech out.
yeah, tech out.
So-
There's
So
Zuck.
Zuckerberg from just Facebook is gigantic, right? You got to know who that is.
People in the UK probably know Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook, right?
Of course,
And
right?
The Social Network movie. So he's got his movie thing too,
Correct.
right?
And then you got this new star and Elon, which is just mad scientists of our generation, right?
Right.
I feel like you were watching Steve Jobs
Right.
invent, not the computer, but just bring it to everyone, and we're all going to be going to Mars. because
How
Elon.
big is that live stream going to be of going to Mars?
It's going to be unbelievable. It will
Right?
break the internet
It'll break every record.
Yeah, that will
probably.
be bigger than the moon landing.
easily, right? I mean, well,
It
maybe
has to
not.
be, right? By default.
I feel like the
that
moon
was
landing
40 years ago. There was no distribution.
Well, the moon landing, I think, was just you stop everything you were doing here, right? If you were in America, I doubt
The
you were
whole planet was what the fuck?
yeah, it must have been, right?
There was also that element of are we gonna die? Am I gonna
Yeah.
watch something crazy happen right now?
They wouldn't have shown it, right? It would have just not. Oh, the feed got cut.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
Trust us, it was great.
It was good. It's like Donald Trump would say, right? It was good. Trust me.
Right.
I know.
People loved it.
People loved
the
it.
moon landing.
It was awesome. You should have seen it, but you couldn't. It wasn't there.
So we think the Mars landing is gonna break the internet.
Mars landing's gonna break the internet. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I think Cuban is another one that
Cuban's probably one of the most well known tech to non tech because of Shark Tank plus the Mavs.
Yeah, I think the Mavs in sports it reaches such a mass of America, right?
Right.
I don't know what the numbers are, but how many millions of people watch basketball and football, right? And you just I don't know. That's 50 million people that just get exposed to this guy.
Is there anyone bigger than Zuck or Cuban? Because it's definitely not. It's not the Google guys. It's not
Tim
Evan Spiegel. It's
Cook.
not. Yes, it's Steve Jobs. Not really even
Probably back in the day, Jobs would, but it wasn't I think Zuck, people can associate with him. It's oh, this is just a 30-year-old guy, dude. It just
Right.
looks just like a normal dude.
Right.
What about just someone who's not on that level? Someone who is I'm gonna throw out PewDiePie as an example, where #1 YouTube channel. PewDiePie just has a massive audience. If PewDiePie suddenly...
Is PewDiePie in tech, huh? Right? Like,
Yeah, well, PewDiePie
Because
is...
PewDiePie's Hollywood, and he's also like teen Hollywood specifically, right?
So that's the interesting thing, though. It's like, who's influencing the teens, right? So it's like, that next generation...
Just 2024.
PewDiePie 2024,
What if he
all of a
just,
sudden
like-
all those guys can vote, right? Like, my nephew, can he vote in 2024? Maybe,
Like,
he's close.
What would the next, like, pulling a Stephen Colbert, like, we're all going to vote on changing the name of that bridge? What if someone Stephen Colbert's with bigger distribution and it's the election is the joke?
Right.
You know?
The election is a joke.
Yeah,
That's what it feels like this
president, you know, holy shit.
Yeah, so okay, so if the Kardashians today, right, like what's the Kardashians' power? If the Kardashians really,
Kim plus Beyonce.
if they were like, hey, like do this, if they tried to mobilize their army, how many people do you think they can mobilize to go do something? Obviously, it depends, right? Like they've gotten to the top of the App Store, millions and millions of downloads. They get people to like their photos. Getting out to vote is a little more friction. If voting ever comes online and it's like,
I don't know, dude. Kim
a tap
Kardashian
away.
makes the Kim K voting app. All of a sudden, everyone registers to vote.
Like, it could-
It's gonna. That'll change the election, right?
I feel like high friction, she could probably get 25 to 30 million people to do something. I think like low friction, she could probably get between 40 and 60 million to do something.
right, which is about the number of people that vote in
Like that's
American
what you, that's what you
elections,
need
right?
to like win. Yeah.
Right.
You need like
And hers is global and all that stuff. But that's pretty crazy. It's foreseeable that in 10 years there's going to be a star so influential in social media that they could actually sway an election and or whatever else.
how, like, what's the number, right? Like, what if I have that power? Like, when I tweet, how many retweets do I get, right? Like, so you see 30 and 50,000 being like the bigger tweet distributions. If I tweet and it's like 100,000 people retweet and like that post regularly, is that now basically what kind of like first wave of thing do you need to then like saturate
yeah.
public perception or
like presuming like in this future, like 10 years down the road, you'll be able to have a good understanding of the engagement of your entire media ecosystem. Like if you have, you know, these broadcast accounts, you'll kind of know where people are bouncing around and you kind of see what that world looks like. So
if Mark Zuckerberg runs for president, is he allowed to just advertise on Facebook for free?
of course,
He puts the button at the top of the thing.
Yeah, hey, vote for me.
Why not? Why wouldn't he do that?
Because I think he could probably be more influential outside of that.
Outside?
Well, I think it would be some legal issues if you tried to really
Really?
influence an election. I think so. I mean, you saw what happened when like the Facebook trending news wasn't conservative enough, right? Like, there's like such an uproar that like
But like they just call it.
He wouldn't
Is
wanna
the
hurt
uproar
the
real,
Facebook.
or is it just like in
It's
our
a,
little
I think it's
like?
a fake uproar where it's like we're gonna call a hearing about this because that's basically what our voters want us to do. We like media bias is kind of like a conservative thing to care
I basically
about.
assume when Congress calls a committee or makes a subcommittee that I just lost like
It doesn't
$100.
In
Like
fact,
out of my pocket, I should have just instead of hearing that, I could pull $100 out and burn it, and we got the same value out of
Well,
it.
let's put it differently. All right, so what we're talking about, there's going to be somebody in the next 10 years who can influence 100 million people to do something.
Correct.
To buy something, to click something, to go vote, to go do whatever. Somebody is going to become that influential because 100 million is a small piece of the overall pie.
Correct.
And given that, that means somebody could basically...
But is 100 million in America, 100 million worldwide? 100 million in America is like a third of the country.
100 million worldwide. is
we
what I mean,
also
but, like,
saw like 20 tech companies band together and they stopped basically legislation on SOPA when they just said like we're gonna shut down our website.
How many people vote? Do they even know this number?
Yeah, I looked this up. It was, I think...
Basically 40%.
I thought it was like 90 million or something like that. If you Google it, it comes at the top.
Like,
I remember looking at the primaries, and it was like 5% of America determines who the candidates are. So like 5 or 6% determine who the two candidates are, and then I think it's like 30 something percent.
129 million people in the last election.
So 130 out of the 300 million. So
Correct.
that's about 40%.
Estimated voting age population is 240 million, so about a little bit over half voted.
Half of who could.
Half
vote.
of who could vote. So 240 million people is the entire voting population.
Right.
So if you could get 100% of that, you win. So as you get 100 million, you're basically at the entire voting. You can sway an election with 50 million.
So Snapchat
Oh,
just had all
so
the
you could
real-
probably swing an election with 10 million vocal people, right? 10 million vocal advocates
Yeah.
could probably influence another 10 to 20 million. That's 30 million that you've swung.
I mean, if you can just activate, if you can find 10 million votes that weren't in the last election and have them all go to one side, like that
That wins.
decides it. Yeah,
Right.
like the spread is never that.
Because the
big.
spread's like 5 or 6%, right?
We might see a spread like that in this election.
So like, what'll happen if the U.S. government comes out with an app and says you can now vote through this app, right? Like,
So-
are we gonna go from 50 to 75%?
That's
So I'll vote if there's an app.
That's
Right.
I generally miss
Or
voting.
if you could
'cause-
just literally vote through Facebook.
So the Democrats for
for
the
Mark
first time this
Zuckerberg.
year.
It's a big Mark Zuckerberg, a little whatever the other person is.
Yeah. I mean, we will get to that point. It's like the Democrats, for the first time ever this year, put in their party platform universal registration. They also want online voting. Republicans are very against it.
Right.
The idea being like most people that are like working class don't vote because of like some working class issue that stops them from voting.
I'll vote for
Or
a new
poverty
party.
issue.
Because the vote is on Tuesday, right?
It's on Tuesday during the day.
That's a strategic
It's
decision.
it's
Yeah.
complicated to vote to register.
Right.
It requires things.
You gotta go somewhere.
If you're like poor or you're the elderly, you have to travel, and like that might cost you money.
Right.
Like it's weird that you even have to register, to be honest. Like you're like.
Am I not already registered here? Like, do I not exist? Like, can
I
I?
have a social security number.
Why
you
can't
know
I use
how
my
old I am.
passport? Isn't that the same thing? Like, I really don't understand the whole process. It feels like it's just one of those things,
You're
like you
the
said, like
CTO of a company.
If you
like-
wanted to maintain control, you would do all those
correct,
things.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about whatever propaganda, and news cycles, and all this stuff, and it was just like, hey, if you run a company, you manage your PR, right? Like, if you run a country, of course you're gonna manage your PR. Not just like any news story just fly out of nowhere. Like, I'm not trying to look dumb, right? Like,
Right.
I would imagine that's like part of the normal process. It's on a Tuesday, and you didn't register, so you can't go. Oh, you're not in your county, and we redrew the lines out. You got to go to that county, and
Right.
all that stuff probably exists so that people can win and lose, right? Like,
Right.
It's like, why are we still figuring out? Like, are we still using the laboratory of democracy to figure out the best way to get an election? Like, it's like there's certain things that like we need to take out of the lab.